All right, so let's start with the retiring baby boomers. All right, right now, as you can see on the chart here, okay, we're about a little bit more than a third of the way to all the baby boomers retiring, and they all should be, the people who are involved in baby boomers should be all retired within the next about 11 years. Okay, so that's a lot of people retiring. All right, and as you can see, it's about close to 80 million people. All right, so that's a lot of people retiring who are going to be needing help from the government, a lot of services that they get. So people aren't thinking about that, and things are really good right now with the economy, so people are saying, oh, we don't have to worry about this. And this is something I already knew about since the time I got involved with immigration reform in about May of 2000, that this was coming. In fact, I read an article back then, and I was like, well, that's interesting, but we weren't as close to where we are now. Okay, and right now we're already beginning to see the effects of what's going to happen. Oh, and this is another thing to realize too, that most people don't know that worldwide there are baby boomers retiring. The same group of people is happening worldwide. What happens is, let's say China. They used to have many kids, and then they changed the system to limiting the amount of children that you could have. So all of a sudden, you went from a lot of people being born to very few people being born, and those very few people are going to have to take care of the large amount of people who are retiring and becoming elderly. Okay, and as you can see, we're going to be anywhere between, by 2030, we're going to be between a fifth and a fourth, for the next couple of years, of the people will be in retirement age. So either they're going to retire or they're going to be working not as productively as they've had before. All right, that's very important. All right, so Social Security. So that's one of the concerns. As we've heard for years, well, Social Security is going to be bankrupt, so it doesn't really matter. Well, it's easy to say that unless you're thinking, I'm going to depend on Social Security. But a lot of people aren't thinking that because they're still working, but once they start retiring, they're going to say, where's my Social Security? Okay? So what you can see right now is in the 60s, there were 5 people contributing to one retired person. All right? Or one person receiving Social Security. And we're going towards between 2.5 to about 2 people contributing. So there's going to be a lot less people giving into Social Security. All right, that's a big factor because if you have less workers, it's going to be tougher on those 2 people. Okay? All right, now this is really startling. All right? Someone who's age 70 would receive about, well, first of all, 88% of the amount of Social Security comes from payroll. So that comes directly from somebody's check. When Social Security was created, it was supposed to be you put money aside, so when you retire, that money's waiting for you. Well, that's not what happens, all right? And it's not realistic. What happens is people who are contributing today are paying for your Social Security, okay? So you need more people working. And let's say somebody's 7 years old. Well, they're only getting about $2,000. When if you live in New York, you're paying rent about $1,000. So you really should be concerned because you're not getting a lot of money in your retirement. And in 45 states, that doesn't even cover 50% of your expenses. It's pretty scary. All right, it's really scary. And this is something that's happening worldwide, not just to us. It's happening in Europe. It's happening in Japan, a lot of places. All right, and this is really where it gets really scary. Okay. Right now, 42% of Americans will retire broke. So if you don't have any money and you're depending on Social Security, how are you going to survive? Because it doesn't even cover half your expenses. All right? So that's why when I ask you who plans on retiring before they're 80, people aren't thinking about it. It's like, who's going to pay for your being in retirement? Who's going to pay for all your needs? That's a lot of needs for a lot of people, about 80 million people. Right? That's a lot of people who are going to be needing to be taken care of. And if you look at this chart too, it's really, even 99,000 isn't enough, so it's really more than the 50%. You're going to 65% of the people who really don't have enough money to retire. It's very scary. All right, so now we go on to the next crisis. So all these baby boomers retiring, because people don't want to think about it, right? It's easier not to think about it. But there's a solution, and that's the good part, right? But people don't want to think about these problems because, like, what does it have to do with me, most people say, right? Well, it has to do with everybody. If you're working, you're not working, if you're going to be working, you don't have to worry about these things. All right, one of the problems we have is we don't have enough doctors. Okay? We don't have enough doctors. And that's what they plan already. It's probably going to be closer to the 100,000 shortage of physicians. That's a lot of people depending on less doctors. So it will be like, with Canada, where they say, oh, it takes you 6 months to get to see your doctor. That's what we're going to be living through. And that affects all of us, right? I mean, unless you're a billionaire or something like that. But the rest of us need a doctor. We're going to have to be waiting a long time. And that doctor's going to be tired and all that. So besides that, all right, these baby boomers, for all the stress that they've been going through, right, they need more medical care, all right? And they say that the system's going to be overflooded. For the next 14 years, we're going to need a lot of care coming in for these baby boomers. And remember, people are living longer, right? So they're planning for people living maybe 15 extra years. Well, now they're going to be living, let's say you planned on living till 80, now you plan on living till 90. So a lot of people are going to be needing a lot of care, okay? That's the important thing to remember. Okay, so remember we talked about rent's very expensive, or just paying your bills, to keep alive in your home. But this is how much they say that we're going to be needing: $275,000 for a couple. That's a lot of money that you have to have set aside. And I don't know too many people have that amount of money set aside, because it's not just, remember, you got to pay for your Medicaid, you got to pay part of your drug costs, and you have to pay a part of the bill too. They don't just give you the whole thing for your Medicaid. So that's a lot of money you have to have set aside, and that's probably if you only live 15 more years or 20 years. But if you live a lot longer, then you have a bigger problem. Okay, so right now they're saying that it's about $10,000 that we need a year, all right, for one person, and it's moving up to $15,000. So the cost of just getting that health care is really expanding. So that's another thing that we have to be concerned about. It's an increasing cost that will not, with more people needing medical attention, it's going to get worse. All right, so let's go on to the next crisis, okay? The housing crisis. All right, so everyone's worried about, all these expensive houses. Well, that's probably something we're not going to have to worry about too much longer, because if it happens like it's happening in Japan, and in fact it's happening the same thing in Australia, and I have articles over here on the boards, there's going to be too many houses and not enough people to be able to afford those homes. Because you have all those baby boomers retiring, and they're not going to be able to carry the expense for those homes or those apartments. Okay, so that, like it says on the bottom here, in Japan, right, well, they have 40% of their people are, not going to be working, which is even worse. And remember, they're a closed society, so that's a big difference that they have compared to the United States. All right, that's one benefit that people in this country don't realize. We're an open society. You don't have to be born here to be part of this country, okay? But, the thing on the bottom, the 900 towns and villages will no longer exist. That it just disappears because there's not going to be enough people to keep the town alive. All right. Another thing, too, is a lot of people require assistance for their home care, right? And right now they say about a third of the people don't receive it, who are 62 or older, who should be getting it. And what happens is that could end up being 5 million people by 2035. That's a lot of people who need help to pay their housing costs that are not going to have it. So that's really something that most people don't realize. It's coming down. It's happening. All right, it's a big, big problem. All right, and it's a global problem too. All right, and we've lived through the real estate bubble. We've lived through the technology bubble. This is the baby boomer bubble. It's really, really something that's scary. All right. Because it's going to happen for a long time. All the other bubbles have been little. This is a big bubble that it's going to burst. All right, other problems with it, we already have a problem with health insurance. We already pay too much in health insurance. So imagine when more and more baby boomers retire, how are you going to be able to afford health insurance, right? I mean, hopefully we go on a step to make it more that more people contribute, and that's, I think we already started going down that road, and hopefully we continue down that road. But we really, it's going to be very scary to be able to pay your health insurance. And the other problem with baby boomers retiring is they don't consume as much. In other words, the older you get, you're living on a fixed income, all right, you're not going to be spending. You're not going down to get pizza, you're going to make food at home. So the guy who's selling pizzas is concerned, all right? You're not going out and buying a lot of clothes. The things that you do now when you're working, you're going to be doing a lot less when you're not working. So that affects the entire community. That affects schools, that affects little businesses. In this country, is about 50% are small businesses. The workers work for small businesses.